Hey guys, welcome to Marketing Cheat Guides. Today we have on the show a Facebook ads expert who offers white label service to digital marketers. I thought you guys would gain a lot of experience in listening to his journey, his story, and all of the things that he's going to share with us today. His name is Nihal Kazim from DFYAds.com. He's a Canadian living in Colombia, so not a digital nomad. He's very stationary, and he is going to share how he is scaling up his business from Colombia. Thanks for joining us today on the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this business and what brought you to Colombia?
Yeah, absolutely. So my company's name is DFY Ads. We also do direct Facebook ads campaigns as well. And the main thing that we do is we design high growth advertising campaigns for small businesses. And so I've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years now. Started with doing everything from websites to social media content to anything and everything to kind of feed myself. And then eventually what that leads to is I'm not enjoying this. This is not as profitable. This is where I feel the majority of my skills are. And then you end up going into a place where you know what you're good at and where you can help people the most. And what that led to was going from contracts that were essentially free to $250 a month retainers before Facebook ads agencies were sexy, to now we're doing $2,500 to $5,000 a month, or taking a base plus a commission based off of performance on our higher end stuff. And then what we've noticed is that because there's so many agencies and so many people aggressively selling Facebook ads, there's a huge need of actually fulfilling the service from people who don't have an infrastructure when it comes to media buyer, graphic designer, copywriter, project manager, and the whole backend that's required to fulfill. So we had a few people reaching out, and that's kind of how DFY Ads was born as well.
Awesome. So what was your background? I mean, I've looked at your LinkedIn, but why don't you share with us? Did you go through school? Did this start this after school? How did you get into digital marketing, so to speak?
Yeah, so I'm 27. I started when I was 14. So I knew like of Jeff Walker's and Frank Kern's stuff when they weren't that big as they are now. And I was just trying to figure out how to support myself and support my family. Eventually, I tried a bunch of stuff, a lot of things that made me really happy and most of the things that didn't. And I was just trying to make a quick buck. And eventually what that led me to was a university called Ryerson University in Toronto, where I grew up. And they actually have an entrepreneurship program in the university. So I did entrepreneurship with a minor in finance, and my goal always was to start a business. I knew that was what I was going to do, and I knew I wasn't going to be in Toronto for a very long period of time after, because it's cold and made me miserable, so I needed to make like decisions. But with all of that said, I went to school for entrepreneurship. What I ended up doing is investing a lot of money outside of the education system on my own education, with tailored education for myself. So that includes masterminds, that includes courses, that includes going to conferences, all of that stuff, and that has been a lot more powerful for me over time. So I didn't really go to school for marketing or website development or any of the other stuff that I did. All of these skills are learned.
Awesome. So when you were first getting started and you decided you wanted to open up a marketing agency, what were some of the early strategies you deployed in order to land some clients?
There was no strategy. It was someone said, "Hey man, do you do a website?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I can sell a website, and I know how to make a website." And then eventually I figured it out, got it delivered, and then sold websites for a bit. I sold 7 websites before I got my own website created. Because if you've noticed, a lot of the people who offer internet marketing or any kind of marketing skills, they don't actually do their own marketing. And I was in the same situation. So I was selling websites before having one of my own. I didn't have a branded email, none of that stuff. So I started there. Then I knew that the website part was very difficult, because you go from being a salesperson to a technician, and you keep going up and down into those different roles, and you don't have an actual consistent business. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to have them recurring, because with websites, you make a bunch of money and then you don't make any money, and it goes up and down like that. So I wanted something recurring, so I started doing Facebook content for people, and that's when it made sense, and people would actually see Facebook posts instead of right now where it's way more pay to play. And so I did that, and then eventually I got into the Facebook stuff. So there was no strategy other than I needed to make money. I wanted to figure out how, and I just did it through trial and error.
Awesome, awesome. So when you first got into Facebook content that you were creating, were you focused in on helping a certain type of business, a certain geography, so people around you where you were actually meeting with them? Or was it just whoever had the money and a check in hand, that was the client of the day?
Yeah, so there was a little bit of that, but eventually what ended up happening is there are types of businesses that I could see trends eventually where if they have this much revenue, if they already are spending money on advertising or how serious they are about growing their business or what does growth mean to them, it became a lot clearer who's going to pay $1,000 a month for content and engagement for their Facebook page. And that's kind of where I started.
And what type of businesses would those be?
So they were everything between like physical products and digital products, and they're mostly local to me. So what would end up happening is those were people in my network. There was no advertising or strategic business development that was being done. None of that. It was just like, hey, I'm going to school full time. I'm part of a nonprofit where I had a pretty like significant role where I was involved with managing 100 people, and then there was also this thing that actually paid bills.
Cool. Well, that's a nice story.
Yeah.
So when you first started out, what were some of the challenges you faced? A lot of our audience are earlier in the journey, as I explained to you, than you are. And really, what I'm curious is, what were some of the challenges you had when you first started your digital marketing agency that you could share with us?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake I made was just not letting go of control. And in order to let go of control, if you listen to a lot of agency owners, you'll see that most of them are control freaks. And when they are obsessed with control, especially with things that they can't control, like a Facebook algorithm, Google algorithm, any of that stuff, what ends up happening is you create an environment that's just not healthy, not only for the client, but for yourself, and creates stress and anxiety. And what that ends up leading to is a very unfulfilling business. And a business that doesn't operate without you at all. So what I mean of not letting go of control, I wouldn't let anyone else in the organization speak to clients. I wouldn't let anyone fulfill on any of the work. I wouldn't actively look for outsourcers because I didn't trust them. I wouldn't actually want to grow too quickly because it would break systems. It's just classic rookie mistakes of not agencies that don't grow. And the reason was I was just scared, man. I didn't know what to do in that situation. And there's a fear of failure. I didn't want to get too big, whatever that means. And there's all these fears that are tangled within each other where it becomes a lot bigger fear where you just don't do anything. So you just kind of keep going in where you're going, and nothing actually kind of kicks you out of that or triggers you in order to move forward unless you create that trigger. So I've been really good at creating environments for me to grow instead of waiting for something to happen to me in order to grow. And I think that was a huge factor in kind of my transformation over the last 2 years, where I just didn't want to settle anymore, and I started making decisions to get where I am today.
Awesome. So I know about a year ago you started to focus exclusively on Facebook ads. So what was the strategy at that point? I mean, that was a couple of years into you building your business. You obviously identified a need in terms of white labeling or filling Facebook ads. Did you have a strategy to go and get those clients for your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been doing Facebook ads for about 4 years. The white label side has been just under a year. And with the agency side, what we did was we were bringing on agencies that have a few clients and agencies who have 100 clients, and figuring out how to work with them and that dynamic. And what we've learned is that there are agencies who they are looking for a white label resource, but what ends up happening is there becomes a decision, which is do I just fulfill it and keep the 500 or $1,000, or do I get someone else to do it and then I have to go and sell? And if you don't have the systems where you don't have a full pipeline, or you're not aggressively selling and on the phone and doing all of that stuff, then just jumping into a business manager and trying to figure stuff out just to make that extra $500 becomes a lot of an easier decision. But the agencies that we found over time that we really want to work with are people who want to bring on 4 to 10 clients a month, and they have systems in order to do that. And that type of mentality of constantly bringing on 4 to 10 per month, plus setting up systems for appointment setters, for outbound paid lead generation, for LinkedIn lead generation, doing like actual presentations in person, business development, all of that kind of stuff. That creates a mountain of qualified leads that eventually come in as the clients that the end agency wants. So what we've learned is that there's a clear distinction between agencies who legitimately want to grow and let go of the fulfillment side and grow into that state where they're actively looking to grow their business from a sales standpoint, versus agencies who are kind of like in that no man's land where they're not able to make that decision, and that ends up keeping them stuck where they are.
Okay. So today you kind of have two aspects to your business, right? You have your higher end clients that you're working with that are selling more of the digital products. And then you have your, we'll call them lower end clients, not any indication of them being lower end, but lower dollar to use your service. So what would somebody typically be paying for a white label service? Just to give an idea for those of the people out there that are interested in using your service, approximately where does that come in so that they have a ballpark for what they need to look at?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with local clients, most agencies that we're working with are selling local services for $1,000 to $2,500 a month. And that's anywhere between 1 to 4 offers that they're running for that client. And then for national clients, they're charging $1,500 to $5,000 per month, and they're paying us anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 per month, depending on what we're executing on. So their markup is about 100%.
Awesome, cool. All right, so what about tips and tricks? Since you spend so much time in Facebook, and it is obviously the topic du jour, what are some of the softwares you use, or some of the training that you would advise newbie people that aren't necessarily ready to jump to that weight level? They're still in that, hey, I'm controlling everything in my business stage. They haven't made that transition to I need to let go and amplify out. What are some things they should look at in terms of either tools or education that you've benefited from that you're willing to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of like technical stuff on Facebook and off of Facebook. I don't think that is a less value thing for most agencies, because I think the thing that agencies should be focusing on is retention. And how do you keep retention in mind, not only from how you're selling to how, like with your content, to how you're selling over the phone, to how you're onboarding a client, to how you're actually getting the first campaign up, and then how you're reacting along the way. Majority of clients that agencies bring on are 3 months or less. And when that happens, like, you need enough of a pipeline to not only satisfy an ongoing, like, stable business, but on top of that, it's very difficult if you don't have any systems to control and bring on new business. So what ends up happening is if you get lazy at any point, or you make a little bit more money than you're used to, you kind of slow down, and that 3 months from now you're going to be in trouble. And I've had firsthand experience at that, because you mentally get a little lazy and complacent, because, hey man, like, I'm killing it, like, I only have this much of expense, I'm doing all right, and then the natural churn process happens, and that's where things become a lot more painful. So I think the biggest thing that we could talk about, and I'm happy to provide this, which is a conversation guide for agencies when they're onboarding a client. So the way we look at this is, after running hundreds of campaigns and helping companies like triple, 5x in a year in some cases, the way that we've been able to do that is because we've been able to essentialize all of what we do down into 7 steps. And we call it our ad method. And the ad method, for the people who are listening, they'll get access to this from the Facebook group, I'm assuming. But the way that we go through this is, there is an offer, and that's the first place we start. What is the offer? If everything else is perfectly executed, but the offer isn't good, the whole campaign just isn't going to work. So where we start is the offer, then is the avatar, who are we marketing to and how, then is the actual funnel. Are you doing this funnel on Facebook, off of Facebook, landing page, thank you pages, booking pages, that kind of thing. Then is the nurturing process. How are you nurturing the click, the lead, and an appointment, or even a buyer? After that is the ad. After that is the ad optimization, and finally is the tracking. So it's a lot of stuff to actually take in, so we're going to provide this document. But what happens is, what questions should you be asking in this process? How do you navigate an onboarding call to understand what worked in the past, what they're trying now, and what you should be trying in the future? And that's been a huge part of our business, on having high quality consultative and strategic conversations with clients, where when we start that conversation, we say, hey, here is our 7-step program that we implement across all of our campaigns, and this helps us pinpoint exactly what the challenges have been in your campaigns in the past and what can we do differently in order to turn around your campaign. So when we're analyzing businesses or going through their strategic process, a lot of the time, especially if they've spent a lot of money, we look at campaigns where they're spending $1,000 a day or more. The first thing that we start was tracking and then work our way through the rest of the process.
Awesome. So how big is your team today in terms of having to manage this process? Do you have people that are working with you either locally, or do you use freelancers that work for you full time, or how do you manage that process?
Yeah, so right now we have 5 full-time core people, and then we have 4 contractors on the copywriting and the graphic design side,
okay.
And we're always looking for more people there. Our core processes are based off of 2 streams, essentially. What we found out is that there are 2 types of campaigns that we're constantly dealing with. First is just getting campaigns launched. And so how can we optimize the process from the time that an agency submits a form all the way to getting a campaign launched? Our goal is always to get them launched within 5 business days or less. And the second is, what is the process for optimizing? And so what we're constantly working on is how do we improve the process for launching campaigns, and how do we improve the process for optimizing them based off of the type of campaign we have.
Awesome. So for people that are watching that, let's say, are selling something like an SEO or selling something like a PPC but aren't doing Facebook ads, are those kind of the ideal people in terms of, from your perspective, they should go to their established relationship and see if Facebook ad is something that their client is receptive to, and then kind of working with you to start to fill their funnel from their existing clientele? Or are you looking for people who are just wanting to set up an agency selling Facebook ads but don't want to do the fulfillment?
The majority of the agencies that are successful with us, they're primarily selling a suite of services that's strategic for the client. So what we don't want for an agency to do is just say, oh, we sell Facebook and that's it. And that's fine. That's a really good place to start. What ends up happening is when the agency and the end client trusts the agency, what happens is hey man, we're spending $2,500 now or $5,000 a month on SEO. And what should we do there? And what you can do is just line up a series of different providers, whether it's SEO, AdWords, and Facebook, and it's just great upsell opportunities. But what I would say is obviously start with one service and understand how to sell that before you go to that next step. The agencies that are doing really well with us are going after just Facebook first, and then they add on additional services. In some cases, we're working with Infusionsoft agencies and SEO agencies that are already selling their core service, and they know how to do that so well that naturally the next step is, hey man, I know Facebook is good, or I know I should be doing something on Instagram. What do you think we should do? And that's when they reach out to us and ask for a strategy or ask for help for supporting to create one. And that's the ideal situation for not only the agency but for us as well, because what we don't want is just doing one campaign and that's it. How do we bring on clients for a year with the expectation and intention to bring them on for a year? And then how can we duplicate that process with the agency, not only in that market, but with other business development opportunities to bring on 5 to 10 a month.
Awesome. All right. So looking back to the younger version of yourself, what are 3 things you wish you would have known 5 years ago when you were kind of starting out?
Yeah. So one of the biggest parts that I'm still working on, because this keeps changing, which is, what is it that you actually want? A lot of the times our belief systems are based off of the people around us. So if your best friends or the people that you look up to or just even are around, their goal is to make $4,000, you'll think $4,000 is a lot of money. If all of your friends make $10,000 and you're looking up to people who are making 50, then you'll think $50,000 is a lot of money. So what I'm just doing is looking to be around people who just have another zero after that number. And so what are they thinking, and what do they think broke is, the different perspective on what belief systems are based off of. I was really struggling on that because the people around me just didn't have big goals, or just goals outside of what they were doing in the city. So the thing that I should have done even faster, which I think I did a decent job of, was just surrounding myself with people who are anywhere between a year to 20 years ahead of me. The guys who are 20 to 30 years ahead of me see about 7 problems I'm going to make before I make them. And so thankfully they have enough respect and love for me that they sit me down and kind of shake me up, and help me out. And so I've had so many of those people. I couldn't 5 years ago, I couldn't give you the same level of conversation because I would be scared just to express myself and have a conversation like this. So it's just ongoing development and having people around you that support you. So the first thing I did was just change the type of people that I'm around that have bigger goals and have more experience than I do. So that's number one. The second is figuring out what to actually say no to. And that is something that sounds so simple, but I dare you to look at your calendar if you're listening to this and how many things you said yes to that you regret as soon as you actually jump on that call or do that thing or take care of a client that you don't actually love anymore, or that you don't want to support anymore, and how much of that do you do? Because eventually that erodes your self-confidence and how you look at your business and how you look at yourself, and it ruins how you're going to prospect and build your business because you're not actually enjoying it. And I did that for so long that I've changed my perspective on a lot of things. So now I'm actively attempting to how do I truly deeply help this person, not only right now, but in their long-term business. And that's why I've kind of focused on how do I help agencies instead, because the scalability of just my high-end clients, it's not as scalable. There's only so much of me. So now this whole business is not built around me at all. We can have a client come in, the project management team, the designers, copywriters, media buyers, all those people start. It can actually finish without me, and that's the whole point. So I can get out of the way and get rid of that dependency of like I'm the center of the universe. As you can see, we're in Colombia with that horn. So sorry about that.
That's all good.
So the first one is just like changing who I'm around. Second one is figuring out who to say no to. And third one, which is a huge how I changed my perspective on a lot of the things that I do, is looking at activity goals instead of outcome goals. Everyone focuses on like, how can I make $10,000 or how can I make $8,000 or how can I make 20, whatever your goal is. But the issue with that is like you focus on that outcome goal, and eventually when you get it, you'll be super depressed like I was because you don't actually set the next goal. So you're just constantly in this this circle, this vicious circle that you're just comparing yourself to the horizon. And as soon as you get to the horizon changes. So what I focused on is, and what I'm actively focusing on, and what my team is doing as well, which is what are the activity goals to get where we want? Because the activity goals, if you focus on the process instead of the outcome, that will actually get you where you want in a way you're enjoying the outcome and you know exactly where you stand, instead of shoot, I'm not at 10,000. Shoot, I'm not. And so you keep thinking like that. It usually creates a really crappy environment. Instead, it's like, what am I doing today? How many booked calls did I get on my calendar this week of new opportunities? How many of those people actually showed up? How many of those people are real opportunities because they said, I am interested? How many of those people said verbally, yes, I'm interested, and how many of those people closed? And so we have an activity tracker for our organization, not only what's going on as a salesperson, but also what's going on as an organization, and then what are the dispositions, like what are the percentages for each one of those activities. And then based off of that, we just set a quota, and we're just doing our best to implement those activities. And for some of our activities, at the point that this is being recorded, we're above our month, the time of this month, we're already above and past what our percentage should be. And in other parts of the process, we're not. So the point is, if we were just focused on, damn, I didn't get this many closes this month, that would have sucked and made us feel really bad. Now we're just focusing on activity numbers, and then we figure out which activities are doing well, which ones aren't, and what can we do about it. And we can look at that information daily.
So kind of like a KPI, like a key performance indicator. It's leading to that ultimate goal that you're looking to get to.
Exactly.
Perfect. So this is a lot. This is awesome. So tell us, how do you spend your time now? You've got two businesses, so I mean you're bouncing a little bit back and forth. They're both in the same world, but they're different kind of avatars or ideal prospects. How do you divide up your time in terms of managing your business today?
Yeah, so this was a big challenge for me, man, because again, when you actually let go and allow other people's to make mistakes and like take ownership and take responsibility, what ends up happening is like there's a void in your calendar and in your time. And so if you don't fill that void with the next level of activity, you're going to feel a little bit confused. And this has happened with some of our clients. We took one of our clients from getting like 50 students of their $2,000 program per year, and now they're working on getting to 600 per year within a year. And like in order to do that, a lot of things break and they have to transform and change who they are. And that's what and personally for me, what I'm working on, which is that now there's other people taking care of the system. And so my responsibility is to work on the system and work on the business. And so what I've noticed is, I have to make a decision. What is the main thing that's important to me? And the main thing that's important to me is the white label business, because I'm able to scale it without me. And I'm able to put people in who are smart and who are going to be able to do each individual element better than I am. So majority of my time is focused now on the DFY side. And then I have a few clients on the higher end amplify the other business side, but I'm not actively looking to bring on clients there. This is the focus, and this is the thing that scales, and this is the business that's going to allow me to move on to additional ventures that I want to do, which includes investing in businesses, turning around businesses, and things that make me nervous and excited because they require me to level up at a different level, so in a completely different way. So I'm constantly pursuing new challenges, but only after making sure that I don't have mediocrity in my life. And that's what I've been working on, because instead of starting two businesses and dividing 50-50, which is impossible, I'm investing majority of my time in this, and this is my priority.
Awesome. So you talked about raising your standards, both in terms of the people that you're getting around, and obviously vicariously through that, what you view as success. So what are some of the things that you're reading or have read that have been influential in you coming to this epiphany on how you're going to approach your life and how you're going to continuously level up? I'm sure a lot of people listening are going to resonate with what you're saying. A lot of people have gone through that journey and likely haven't gotten to the point where they've come with clarity to how to solve this problem. So any kind of information you can share in terms of things that you've read or looked at that would help them on that journey?
Yeah, how much time do you have? So there's a lot of different like books and resources that I get. A lot of what we don't talk about or what we don't get educated on is how to learn and how to implement and how to optimize that process, because it sounds like such a fundamental thing that's critical to how you can grow as a person, but it's not really taught. And so one of the things that I've been doing recently is, instead of first just saying here's a bunch of books to read, I think an important element of this process is first, how do you look at books and education? Because this is if you start with the right intent, everything will change for you. So for example, someone who spent 20 years looking at sales and being the best possible salesperson that they can be, then taking all of their lessons and essentializing them into a book, and then saying, hey, here's the ultimate guide as a salesperson, that you get all of that knowledge for $20 essentially, that's mind-blowing. So how do you actually respect that book, and how do you approach that book? So at this point, the way I'm approaching content is I buy the book on Audible, and then I also buy the book on Kindle, and then I'm sitting there uninterrupted at least for 30 minutes to an hour at a time, and just taking in not only the audio but also visually, and my level of comprehension is way higher, and I'm consuming them with a lot more respect. So that's like first thing. And then second is, how do you actually want to approach learning in terms of what is important right now? So if you suck at prospecting, what are ways that you can get better at prospecting? If you suck at systems, or even if you're okay at systems, how can you get better? So I hold myself to a high standard relatively, and one of the things that I want to get even better at are systems. And so in order to bring on 100 campaigns a month for agencies in our business, we need really good systems. So one of the books that I've been reading is called The Goal. It's a manufacturing process, and how they look at the TPS system, which is Toyota, but also the main concept is theory of constraints. What are the constraints of your business, and what is your process of finding constraints, optimizing the constraints, and then finding the next one, and then continuing that process. So I know for my business, that's one of the highest leverage things I can do, because once I figure that out, and once I feel even more confident about that, that changes how we approach the growth of the business, and then go to the next level of what it looks like to bring on 500 campaigns in a month, or whatever the next milestone is, you know? So first is like, how are you actually approaching the content of a book? And then what is your intention of what is the thing that you need to learn now? Based off of that, I think there's a few suggestions I can make. One is Relentless, which is by Tim Grover. That is an incredible book on mindset and how you go after setting really high standards in your life. And those standards are set by you, not by the people around you. So I've gone through that book, and sometimes I just listen to a chapter just to get me fired up. And then 10X Rule with Grant Cardone is a really good one to kind of change my mindset when I'm feeling a little bit wimpy or feeling not so mentally strong. So those books from a mental standpoint are great. In terms of like actual business books, if you haven't read things like 4-Hour Work Week or Scaling Up, those are books that have helped me. I don't read that many hardcore business books anymore. I'm working a lot on specific challenges I have. So right now for me, that is specifically like operations. There's a little bit of prospecting in there, but mostly operations and how do I improve fulfillment processes and BPMN charts and overall just Six Sigma, all of that kind of stuff, where I'm just looking at how to improve how things work. But then the other thing that most entrepreneurs don't talk about, which is, man, like I want to be happy. And the purpose of my business is to actually take care of myself and be fulfilled. And a big part of that is I want to be able to make the decisions that I want. And what I'm working on is working on my past, working on my belief systems, working on how I approach my day to day. And some of the books that have helped me there's a book called Letting Go. There's a lot of usually challenges people have emotionally, including myself, and what are the things that you're holding onto throughout your life. And so I've found out that I've been holding on to stuff like my parents' divorce and things like that, where there's pain in my body and things like that. So if you've never gone into that, that might sound weird, but the more you actually explore challenges you have mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you kind of discover what's been stopping you, and then you have to make a decision if you're actually going to fix it. So those are a few of the books that have helped me as of late. The Goal when it comes to processes, Relentless, 10X Rule, Scaling Up, and Letting Go. Those are a few of the books to look at.
Awesome. Wow, that's great. Relentless, is that the one Michael Jordan's coach, Kobe Bryant's coach? Is that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's a great book. So one of the last questions that I like to ask before I get to it, is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to throw out there? Question I should have asked that I didn't, that you want to share with our audience before I go to my final question?
It depends on what your final question is.
I guess my final question that I like to ask is something I picked up from Tim Ferriss, which is just, what's something you spent $100 on recently that you're really enjoying? Could be outside of business, just something that's bringing you some enjoyment that was a good investment of that $100.
Less than $100. I think by far those have to be audiobooks, as cheesy as that might sound. I've gone through a couple of audiobooks, I think like 10, 15 times. And even though the book doesn't change, I do. And so the way I'm approaching the book and how I look at the book is so different. And Relentless is actually one of those books that I just keep listening to over and over again, because as I change my perspective and what I look at day to day, my approach on my business changes, and not only on my business, but how I'm approaching life. So that would be the one thing that was very valuable. But to answer your question of what is it that you should have asked, I think one of the things is what could an agency owner do right now if they feel that they're stuck? So a lot of agencies, including myself at one point, was I was just stuck. And even right now in my life, Stuart, I'm creating urgency in my life. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is going bad. The life that I wanted 2 years ago, I'm living and I've crafted after a lot of hard work. But there's more, and I have a much greater potential than what I'm actually realizing at this point, and I'm pursuing that aggressively. And so the thing, if you're an agency owner and you feel stuck, you have to first figure out what is it, why is it that you actually feel stuck? Maybe where you are right now is exactly where you should be. You're making $5,000 a month, and that's what you wanted in the beginning, but you don't actually just know what $10,000 a month looks like. So maybe what you need to figure out is, what does $10,000 a month look like? Or I want a $100,000 a month agency. Who has that $100,000 a month agency? Reach out to Stuart, reach out in the group, and figure that out. Or it's like, I'm trying so hard to get more leads and I suck at it and I don't know what to do. And if that's legitimately the only thing that's stopping you because you have back-end fulfillment people, then you can actually look at your calendar, look at what's going on with your activity numbers, not your outcome numbers, and work on analyzing it so you can figure out what the real challenges are. I think it's so easy to blame yourself and blame other people and blame the situation in the market of like why things aren't working. And sometimes what you need to know, or sometimes what you need to hear is like, you suck, like you're not good at that thing. Maybe you should get better. And there's a lot of things that I suck at that I'm asking and reaching out to people who are way smarter than me, who see problems way clearer than I do, and who can help me and mentor me in 15 minutes or 20 minutes on things that I've been struggling with for years. And sometimes you don't want to hear that, but that's what you need to hear. And if you're struggling or if you feel stuck, first figure out why is it that you feel stuck, and then do you actually want to do something about it? Because there's a lot of people who know why they're stuck, but they won't do it. So I'm creating that urgency, and I'm grateful that I have the environment to push me. And there's been a lot of people that have been supporting me, especially on the DFY side, to help kickstart the agency, to help other agencies grow, and then also work on relieving a lot of my time and empowering other people in my organization to grow as well. So if you're stuck, figure out what it is and why is it that you're stuck, and then determine what you're going to do about it and what we can support you with in the group, or if, individually, anything that we can support you with. We're happy to help.
Awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. Guys, if you're still watching this, give us a thumbs up. This was a great interview. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe channel. If you have any questions, drop them below. We're both happy to engage with you here on the channel. And I will make sure for anyone that wants to download the comprehensive guide that Kazim's pulled together for onboarding, I'll make sure to make that available in the group. So just hop into the group, make a comment below the post, and I will get my VA to send that right over to you. Thanks a lot for taking the time today.
Yeah, you got it, man.